Hello, and welcome today to your final mindfulness session of Mental Health Awareness Week 2021. And as you might have noticed, I am outside. Today we are going for a mindful walk. If you'd like to jog, that's also good. And if you'd like to go for a run, that's also good too. Whatever floats your boat today. So we are going to go for a walk. So if you're not in a place where you can go for a walk, you've got a minute or two now to grab your shoes and get out the door. Because it's a little bit of a different session today, we've got a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of instruction just to start off. So the first thing is I just want to make sure that you're safe, firstly. So if you can make sure that you're somewhere quiet, perhaps a park. I'm going to be walking by the canal. So essentially somewhere where you're not having to cross roads and things like that. That would be great. The second thing is that this is all remote now. It's all on the go. So you may hear me cut out at certain points. That might be a connection issue on my side. It might be a connection issue on your side. So what I would just say is bear with it, and in a few moments I'm sure I'll be back. And that's pretty much it. So enjoy the session. If you're watching this on as a recorded session, pause the video now, get yourself into a nice park or a nice quiet area within nature, of course. Always good. And let's get going. Don't worry, you're not going to see me the whole time. You're not going to be watching anything. So this is going to be an audio. So I'm going to turn the camera off and you should still be able to hear me. And there was just one other thing, was because you're watching this on YouTube, what I would just recommend is to not lock your phone. So if you just keep your phone in your pocket or keep your phone in your hand, keep the video playing, then that should work lovely. Now I do have my colleague Johnny in the background, so if anything goes terribly wrong, then he's going to help us out. And you might hear him at some point as well. But hopefully we're just going to go for a nice walk and we're going to start to notice some of the things that I think are really interesting to notice when we practice mindfulness away from, just sitting in a room for 30 minutes, as much as I love doing that with you all. The purpose of mindfulness and the purpose of those sessions is to translate that into our everyday lives. And that's why it's really important for us to try to take that learning and see where we can apply it. So let's define mindfulness as we always do. Mindfulness means maintaining a moment-by-moment awareness of our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and our surrounding environment through a gentle and nurturing lens. Mindfulness also involves acceptance, meaning that we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings without judging them, without believing, for instance, that there's a right or a wrong way to think or feel in a given moment. When we practice mindfulness, our thoughts tune into what we're sensing in the present moment rather than rehashing the past or indeed imagining the future. So today's session is a little bit different, but we are still going to be bringing our attention, focusing our attention on this present moment and what we can sense, what we can see, what we can feel. When you consider the sessions that we usually do, we close our eyes, right? But we're going for a walk today, so we're not going to be closing our eyes. Now, what closing our eyes does is it allows us to point inwards. It shuts off a whole bunch of stimuli from our eyes, which actually provides the most information, a lot of information for our brain to process, and allows us just to concentrate and focus our attention on our breath, as we often do, but then also on the thoughts and feelings. So we look at internalizing our attention, internalizing our focus to the psychological world, you might say. And today we're kind of doing the opposite in a way, because we're going to be focusing on our senses, but the physical senses, the senses that we can use to make sense of the world around us. And your walk is going to be completely unique to you, but I'm going to describe the kinds of things that I like to notice when I'm opening up my awareness, when I'm opening up my focus to the very small things, the very ordinary things in the world. Essentially the beauty that exists in every moment. It's there if we choose to see it. And it's always there. It's incredibly ordinary. And I think when people talk about well-being, when people talk about happiness, sometimes there's this tendency to focus on rainbows and sunshine and all fireworks and excitement. But I can tell you now, there's no sunshine here today. In fact, it's incredibly overcast. And so mindfulness is not all about that. Well-being is not about excitement, happiness. It's about peace. It's ordinary. So I've just been standing there talking for a while, and I've seen a couple of cyclists go by. I think we should probably start this walk. Hopefully you've started walking already. And as you walk, I want you to really notice every person that comes past. I had two cyclists come past. I had a man and a lady with a dog, kind of like those like whippers, the kind of racing dogs. And then I've got a chap just running towards me now. And it's in those little moments, where you can share a smile with a stranger. Maybe not even that, maybe just some eye contact. And you can share a moment together with somebody that you've never met, that you'll never meet ever again. And that is quite a wonderful thing. The runner's coming back again now. Probably hear his footsteps, eh? So let's focus a little bit on some of our sensations, on some of our senses. So talking of footsteps, let's start there. Now feel free just to slow things down a little bit. But what I really want you to focus your attention on is every step. Notice where your foot hits the ground first. Notice the shape of how your foot contacts the ground. Is it all even? Or do you start with your heel first? Now you might have to really slow down your walking to notice this. I just dragged my heel a little bit there. Are you dragging your heels? I remember being on a retreat when I was kind of learning about this kind of stuff. And we were walking on the beach with a couple of the mentors. And I thought I walked slowly. But this couple, I've never seen anybody walk as slowly as they did. But they were incredible to spend time with, and noticed all of the little things. The little intricacies of life, of nature, that we often overlook. And I think that walk possibly will stay with me forever. So let's just move our attention to the things that you can see. Different shades of green. I've got freshly cut grass here by the canal. So you've got that freshly cut grass green, but also we've had a fair bit of rain, haven't we? So there's that wet green as well. And I'd love to tell you that I've got that fresh cut grass smell, but I think I'm a day or two late for it. You never know, as I keep going up the canal, I might get there. Just to the side of the canal here, you've got, just nearly got run over by a cyclist there. Just by the side of the canal, you've got like nettles and weeds. You know, what often people would call weeds. But I heard like a quote about weeds are just plants that aren't meant to be there. But here, they seem perfectly in place. I've just stopped for a moment because in these stinging nettles, you've got flowers. They kind of look like shells, white shells. Now, I don't think I've ever noticed the flowers that come on stinging nettles before. And it doesn't surprise me, because we're kind of encouraged to avoid stinging nettles, aren't we? We're kind of encouraged to stay away from them because they're dangerous, or they're not that dangerous, they're just pretty annoying. I suppose if you're allergic to them, then they'd be very dangerous. But then inevitably, we also know that where stinging nettles grow, dock leaves grow as well. So you've got that sense of balance. But it's a really good example of missing the beauty, missing the flower. Mainly because we haven't looked for it before. Mainly because we've been told to stay away from it. And sometimes we just listen to those thoughts, or listen to those messages that we've received throughout our lives, without really questioning them. And that's interesting to see that today. So, I mean, this is my walk. I mean, I really hope that you're noticing things on your walk that you maybe didn't notice before. I'll give you another example that you might see where you are, especially if it's been raining where you are. So I'm by the canal, so there's a lot of water, but there's lots of puddles here as well. You remember when you're like kids and you've got wellies on and you just jump into puddles the whole time? And now I very carefully avoid getting my feet wet in there. But if there are any puddles near you or any bits of water near you, why not just take a moment to notice the reflection? Notice the surface of the water. Notice how the reflection is so different on different parts of the water. Is there any movement? Are there any ripples? Cyclist just came past as I'm looking at the canal here, and just tuning into my senses, I could hear the bike coming before I saw it. It just allowed me to stop and notice her, make eye contact and a little bit of a nod. You know, I was just talking about those moments earlier. That's really precious. And I have no doubt that I will forget about that moment in probably by the end of this session. But it's the moment-to-moment experience of life that is so important when we talk not only about mindfulness, but when we talk about well-being. When we focus our attention on our moment-to-moment experience of life, we exist and we are fully immersed in this present moment, the only moment that exists, the only experience of life that we can have. When our attention is consumed by our thoughts about the past, our thoughts about the future, our thoughts about our expectations, that's when we experience difficulty. We experience friction. Enjoy every moment, or at least accept every moment and appreciate every moment. I've literally just turned around because I've just seen the time. So what you've got now is a moment of responsibility, a moment of leadership in your life. This is the most important decision you're ever going to make in this moment. Are you going to turn around? Or are you going to keep walking? And there isn't a right or wrong answer here. But it's absolutely the most important decision that you have to make in this moment. Because it's the only decision you have to make in this moment. If we're able to dissect our days into a succession of moments, we start to realize that tomorrow will be exactly the same. A succession of moments. 5 years from now, exactly the same. Trust your ability to make decisions in the moment. Trust the evolution of billions of years to bring human beings to this moment and to bring you to this moment. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to have any of the answers, really. But you can always course correct. You can always make different decisions. You can always change your mind. And that's a good example, actually. You may have turned around with me and you might look at the clock and you go, well, do you know what? I've got a bit of time. I might turn around again. I might extend this walk. And that's okay. You can absolutely do that. Or in exactly the same way, you might have continued walking and thought, actually, do you know what? I might turn around when I get to X point. And that's okay too. You might decide you're going to take a different route home, and that's okay too. I encourage you to try different routes, explore different places. Give your brain different stimuli to process. Sometimes when we have that same habitual patterns, we can get really set in our ways. So expand your horizons, expand your options, and know that there's no right or wrong, just different paths. Just different paths. Oh. That's a funny bike. It's like a tricycle thing, and he's lying down on it. I don't think I've seen one of those before. Hopefully you've enjoyed this session. Hopefully you've enjoyed your walk. Coming to the end of Mental Health Awareness Week, but of course, join me for Mindful Mondays every Monday at 12:30. And if you can join us later at 2 o'clock, we'll be talking to Johnny Wilkinson about mental health. So I'm super excited about that. Oh, there's another bell. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a lovely weekend. And hopefully I will see you again soon. Take care, everyone.